Alright, hello. I don't know why I decided to clap there. I hope that was not earth-shatteringly loud in the microphone. But hello, chat. We are back. Another episode. Let me just say off the top, I did mean to upload a video yesterday. However, I got distracted doing some work for another thing that I unfortunately cannot reveal specific details about yet. Hopefully that will change in the next couple days, and then I can talk about it. It's not like a big thing. It's small, but it is very cool. It'll be a nice little life update for me, hopefully. But we'll see. Other news. My cat is here. Say hi, Curtis. All right, I guess I'll just go fuck myself. Probably gonna start yelling at me later because I'm not giving him head pats. There you go. Scratchy, scratchy, scratchy. You fucking ungrateful bastard. Anyway, other than that, I have not played Hades 2 today. I wanted to get this video up first before I got sucked into that, so you guys are welcome. Don't say I don't do anything for you. But yeah, what? Don't scratch my chair, you little asshole. My pillow. But yeah, so last time we figured out the gimmick. We did it. We got there. We came with a really cool idea about the gear slots affecting the cards that you're drafting in your deck. And then, hi, uh, we kind of got stuck on the room aspect. So I've been thinking a little bit about this. I've been thinking kind of on and off. And I guess an easy way, well, not necessarily an easy way, but a way to figure out what we want to do with the rooms is figure out the exact long form loop we want with the game. Because it's kind of two directions, right? Where we can just go Slay the Spire rules, where goal, like a singular run, is just you getting to the boss, beating the boss, and then start a new run. Or we can go kind of more blueprint style, where the goal is to get to the center of the dungeon, but that's like a long form goal. Um, and it takes multiple runs to do that. I think I would prefer the first option because then I get to design more bosses and stuff, which I think is fun. So I think that leans us. Oh, I think that kind of more leans us away from this and maybe more towards the chunks. Um, because then we could separate it into separate acts again, kind of like Slay the Spire. Or another game I was thinking of while I was working on this problem is Remnant 2, which is a very neat game that I think has a very neat idea. Paint, I don't know what the profile is. But so the way Remnant 2 works, right, is so through the course of the game you have to go through three different worlds. You got to go through Losham. I think I'm spelling this right. You got to go through Iesha. Iesha. And you got to go through Narud, right? So there's three different like worlds that all have like the unique enemies and map types and shit. So like Losham's like a Victorian style Gothic horde thing. Yesha's like a jungle-y world, and Narud's like a desert apocalypse. Um, but how it works is so the first when you start a new playthrough of Remnant, it randomizes which order you go through these three worlds. Let's say for the sake of simplicity, you go through Losham first, Yesha second, and Narud third. The first time you start in a world, it's going there. Counting the DLCs, there are three main quest lines that it can potentially pick. You can go one, two, or three. So for Losham, I'm saying these names, the names don't really matter, but it's like the False King quest line, the Night Weaver quest line, and the Awakened, they're the One True King quest line. And so what it does is the first time you load in, it'll pick one of these three. So let's say it picks the Night Weaver quest line. What this does is it determines the main area you spawn in. This game, the worlds are kind of procedurally generated, right? So it'll whichever quest line it picks determines the main area you're in. It determines the final boss. So main area determines the final boss of the world. Final boss. And then kind of smaller scale, it also determines some NPC spawn, like where some NPC spawns. So, for example, if this is the Nightweaver quest line, the main area is set up around this old sanitarium. The final boss is the Nightweaver. Uh, and then a couple specific NPCs spawn in like the basement of the sanitarium or like locked up somewhere else, as opposed to uh, here, where, let's see, this one, the False King quest line. The main area is the False King's palace. The boss is the False King. And then this despises like Nimue. Nimue spawns in the basement of the palace here, as opposed to Jesus Christ, dude, what did you just do? Anyway, as opposed to over here, Nimue spawns locked up in a tower. But so beyond that, however, beyond this, so you got your main area. Let me move this down here. So you got your main area, which is the sanitarium. As you traverse through, there will be a bunch of little offshoot areas that you can go explore that have little like side mini bosses and extra loot. These areas, they're the same in each of these three quest lines, but the order, like how they connect and the order they spawn in is different, right? So you're always gonna have like the I don't remember the name of any of the side areas, but like the sewer layer. But sometimes it'll be over here, sometimes it'll be over here, sometimes it'll be over here, right? That makes sense. So you've got these main areas that are kind of randomly generated when you load in, and then um, these side bits that you can go explore. So I feel because this is kind of like what we like this bit up here is kind of what we were talking about, but instead like the player gets to choose instead of the game, which we could do. The question is, I guess, I don't know. Can you not try to like rip my shirt apart, dude? Oh, you want my lap? Okay, so here's the thing. You got on my lap yesterday and then you clawed the shit out of my leg. And it really hurt. So, are you gonna do that again, or are you gonna be kind and sweet and innocent? Why are you suddenly silent all of a sudden? You've done nothing but yell at me for like the last 3 days, and now you're dead silent. What's up with that, you little bastard? You know I'm recording? You sense it? Your alien intelligence? Are you dreaming? Module on my chair. Executed. Give me a moment, sorry. Don't do that. Stop. You're a menace. This is why I usually wait for you to nap to record these. Which admittedly is not hard to do because you sleep all the fucking time. Which I guess I can't actually judge you for because I also do that. Alright. Just taking a nap on my lap. Alright, but yeah, so you see what I'm saying here, right? Maybe you don't, I don't know. But I feel like, because I like the idea of drafting different parts of the map, but I'm starting to wonder if maybe it's kind of being forced in there and maybe it doesn't necessarily fit. Like maybe we focus in on the gear gimmick and not worry as much about the drafting element. Maybe that ends up being more binary. Or, at least like kind of more like Remnant 2, where it's kind of done in the background and not given as much to the player. Hmm. Hmm. I don't know though. I guess. Gah. I guess what we could do, right, is maybe here's a thought I'm having, right? Is we split the game into like 3 acts, right? Let's make that a little bit more even. Close enough. Where we do like Act 1. I'm just saying like acts, the levels is maybe like a better term. Or like, I don't know, depths. I'm gonna use the term acts, right? But like Act One is like the entrance to the dungeon. Act Two is kind of the middle of the dungeon. Act Three is the bottom of the dungeon, right? And maybe when you start Act One, you get kind of what we were saying before. You pick one of three. I'm kind of like condensing all the ideas we've had. You pick one of three kind of like zones, and that decides like the area you're in, right? So again, maybe Act One, you go to the Trapster's lair. I'm gonna keep coming back to the Trapster's lair. So then Trapster's lair is taken out of the pool. Act Three, you get a new thing of three, and now you're in the swamp. And Act Three, and then Act Three, new hand of three, and you're in Goblin Town. Right? So we keep that drafting element, but it's more large scale. The question is, what exactly are you drafting? So you're drafting a chunk of the map, right? But what is that like? How does this chunk function? Is the chunk the same every time? I think the answer is it should be kind of no, because I think that then gets boring and predictable. But then how does it change, right? Hmm. 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 Conundrum. A conundrum, a conundrum, a conundrum. So, like, we could do something similar to Remnant, where you've kind of got like a main path to follow, right? Like you do your main path, and then there are like offshoot things you can explore to like find more loot and make yourself more powerful. But again, like, how do we do this side content, right? Hmm. I'm doing this in the hopes that by the time I finish trying all these lines, an idea will come to me. It did not. Hmm. Ow. Ooh, suck. You are like a little baby. You know that? Hmm. Unless. So, okay, we could kind of. I'm thinking in my head, right? Maybe there's a world where. Maybe another layer. Right? Where maybe we combine elements of both Blueprints and Remnant 2, right? Where. Think about this in my head. This might actually just be all Remnant 2 now that I'm thinking about it. Okay, right? But, like. So you've got. So this is your area, right? And this is the exit up here. This is where you go to the next area. I guess also a question that we want to ask on top of everything else is do we want to allow the player to just like beeline to the exit and go to the next act, or do they need to meet some kind of requirement to get to the next area? Um, like is there a boss per area? Like Slay the Spire. Like Slay the Spire has three different bosses and one at the end of each act. Do we want to do that? Um, Remnant 2 also has like because technically the way Remnant 2 is set up is the main area is kind of set into three different is also set into three different parts, and there's like a mini boss, world boss. Um, to do that. The mini bosses are usually just bigger versions of regular enemies. Like they're usually nothing too complex. But then the world boss is its own like full thing. So we could do something like that. Hmm. Many questions that we have to answer. I don't know if this part would be so complex, but more is the fool. The fool is me. Hmm. And then back to the other thing I was going to ask, right? That I can totally remember, and I haven't just immediately forgotten about it because I went on a different tangent. Oh no. Oh no. Ah. Damn. Anyway, hmm. It's like a foot. This doing anything for you guys? Anyway. Anyway, hmm. Do you have any ideas, Curtis? No, he does not. His head is empty. Um, hmm. Ooh, okay, so you start here. You walk in. You're here, right? There's this big. There's this technically straight line. It's not like an actual straight line because it's gonna like curve and double back on itself. So, but for intensive purposes, it is a straight line to the exit, right? And then along this path, there are like offshoots to different things that you can go explore if you want to. I think you should just be able to like go straight to the exit. That seems like bad because then you can kind of just skip a lot. Like obviously the incentive is you want to explore to get stronger, but that's not necessarily like I feel like I want incentive more than that. And then maybe like this, there's like a door here. Maybe it is just a boss. Maybe I just want to make more bosses. Is that so wrong? But then does that make, because I want the final boss in the dungeon to be kind of a big showstopper. And so I feel like having smaller bosses before that kind of well, is less cool, you know? Like I think maybe we can put like mini bosses or stuff in the dungeon, but maybe they're optional stuff on the side that you can do, or like maybe there's like secret bosses you can find. But because I want the final boss dungeon to be like the main big showpiece combat for every run. So maybe it's just like a door or like something that stands in the place of a door that needs to be unlocked. So you also have to go find a key that's hidden somewhere in the dungeon, like hidden or guarded, protected somehow. That could work. That could be it. So so there's a key. I don't know what I'm doing. If Bavaries. Anyway, it's a terrible key. Get this out of you. Okay, but you have to go find a key to unlock the exit, and then all the while you're exploring this different area. How is the area set up? We still have not figured out the core issue, which is how is the area set up? Hmm. 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 You did not like that. My apologies, my friend. Oh, are you getting up? No, you're just readjusting. Okay. Are we holding hands now? No. Okay. Um. Hmm. How is this little wiener set up? Isn't that okay? So, all right, take it from the top. So, let me pull this back up. I do. Do I like the? No, I do like the idea of like drafting acts. I think that's neat. So you've drafted. So you've picked one of three things. You've drafted the act. You're in. Alright. I guess that does come up with the issue of like incentivizing the player to draft different places and not just the same three every time. But part of that I think comes down to like good design, like making all three, making multiple places worth drafting for different reasons. Or maybe, yeah, maybe we could also do kind of like what they do in Hades, where like they give you like a bonus to resource gain if you use a specific weapon. Like maybe you can make it like add modifiers, like temporary modifiers to certain areas every time. That can be interesting. We'll come back to that later. Let me add that to the where's the ideas section? Add temp mod different incentive. Okay. That okay. There's gonna be a breakthrough here. There was a breakthrough last time, there's gonna be a breakthrough again. We're gonna figure it out. I've got my pipe in my hand. Hmm. There is a solution for this. I feel like it's obvious, and I just can't think of what it is. Ah, I'm still on the eraser. God damn it. Ah, god damn it. A lot of this video is just gonna be silence broken up by me going ah. God, there's a solution here. We could figure this out. There's a solution here that isn't just make play. Uh, hmm. Okay. So you've drafted like we're taking this from the top. So you draft your area. You've drafted Act One. You're in the Trapster's lair. You start here. There's a door here. Goal, find the key or whatever. Key, not G. Key. So you need to find the key to get out of the Trapster's lair, right? You start in this room. Okay. Hmm. So is the key? So let's say the key is in. Let's say the key is on the other side of the spike pit, like here, right? There, a little bigger. So let's say, we'll put it like up here. So this is the spike pit, and the key is here. It's like in a chest on the other side of the spike. Is the key always there? Or are there like three, like maybe there's like the minefield. That's like a minefield. Minefield and then like, I don't know, the fire room, right? Do we do it so like the key, like at the start, the key will pick one of these three rooms to spawn in? Like there's like a 33% chance that it is in one of those three. Could do that. Creates variance, is a simple way to create variance. So we can do that. I think that works. Next question. Do all three of these rooms spawn in every time regardless? So okay, let's say Trapster's Lair has, for simplicity's sake, 5 rooms, right? 5 rooms, right? You've got Spike Pit, Flame Room, Minefield, Big Scary Iron Maiden, Crusher Trap, right? You got these 5 rooms. So you get these 5 rooms. Do we do it so only like 3 of them spawn in? And you only have to do with 3 rooms, or do all 5 of them always spawn in every time, just in like a random order, where like sometimes 5, sometimes Crusher Trap is here, Flame Room is here, right? How does that work? How do we want to do that? Do we make a bunch of rooms and then randomly distribute them? Thinking back to Remnant a little bit. The Remnant 2, there are more side areas than you encounter. Like some of them don't always spawn in. It's just neat. But we're also smaller scale, right? Like where we don't necessarily have like a big main area, I don't think. I'm deciding that now. I realized that I was working off of having the main, but no, yeah, I think okay. Okay. Actually, you know what? I'll leave this here. This can stay. You can stay. I'll make another one. Okay, so yeah, I don't think we necessarily have like a big main area. I think it is just like a connection of like rooms and stuff. And some rooms can be bigger, right? Hmm. Hold on. I'm going back through this in my head. No, I think that's fine. Um, yeah, okay, so yeah, there's not necessarily like a main area, but so kind of what we were talking about before, where it's like room connected to room, right? It's just more like natural. So there is, yeah. Okay, I think I'm figuring this out, right? So I think because before it was like a kind of a big blob that like looked like this, right? That's what I was drawing. I think it's more gonna look like this, right? Where you have so kind of that blueprint style of like connected rooms, but you're not necessarily drafting the rooms themselves. The rooms themselves are kind of randomly. I really like the idea of drafting rooms though. I think that is really cool for like a dungeon crawler. Like I think that's really interesting. And I do really want to. I'm back. I'm talking myself out of the idea. So the issue with drafting rooms, right, is how do we? Because I don't want you to dead end yourself. That was, if you remember from last episode, that was I think the core issue we were trying to solve was how do we stop ourselves? How do we stop from dead ending ourselves? So how do we do that? And I guess the theoretical answer is we design the rooms in such a way where you can't dead end yourself. But like I don't want every room to just have 4 exits because then I think that kind of limits design space. So potentially you can rotate rooms is maybe a solution, right? So no, I don't know. But like, hmm. 'Cause my issue with dead ends, right, is I don't want the player to ever enter the world where they get like a cool build put together, they get a lot of synergies and like cool gear, but then they get stuck and they dead end themselves, so then they can no longer use their gear, right? I think that'd be really anticlimactic and boring. Like I think that works for a game like Blueprints because that's designed to be like that. Um, where obviously it's puzzle based, not action based. But I think as a more action-based game with combat, I think potentially locking the player out of that combat because they didn't draft the rooms properly would be bad. So how on earth do we account for dead ends? What is the solution here? That is it, because like again, like the obvious solution is to make every room have multiple exits, but that like if every room looks like this to an extent, it just seems like lame to me, you know? Every room has two exits? Could you? I'm trying to think if you could program it in such a way where it can detect. No, I don't know if that's possible. It probably is possible. It'd be really fucking hard. So maybe every room has at least two exits, right? Like that, or like, like that, or even like that, just be a box with two exits. And then maybe you can rotate the room so it's always like you never have to worry about it. No, no, you could potentially still soft lock yourself, right? Because like, okay, 'cause even if every room is two exits, some rooms would have to have three. Because if you start here, and an exit here and exit here, you go this way, exit here, go this way. Yeah, I'm like thinking, or wait, no, no, yeah, wait, this would be three exits actually. It'd be here. Yeah, you still could soft lock yourself, so you could just do something like that. So yeah, I think like this is the issue. Unless we design every room to have three or four exits, if we put drafting rooms in the hands of the player, there's always a chance they're going to soft lock themselves, which I don't want them to do. I guess the thought is if you give them the ability to rotate the pieces, then they won't soft lock themselves. Or maybe you could just make it so you like prevent them from putting the pieces in a way that would. I don't know. Like theoretically, you prevent them from stop locking themselves by incentivizing them not to. But the fact that they would have the option at all, I think, is just bad design. You gotta lick yourself in my lap, dude. It's gross. Don't use me to climb up. This freaking guy, dude. I feel like I'm gonna be really quiet in this episode because I'm leaning back because I don't want to like sandwich my cat. Um, yeah. What do I want to do? Oh, now are we holding hands now again? Huh. Huh, 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 huh. this is not going to be a two-parter. We're going to figure out how to do this in this episode. I'm determined. As long as it doesn't go like over an hour. So, what else could we do? I guess we have the doors. Oh, yeah, I guess I could do that. Yeah, I guess we don't actually have to have the doors tied to the rooms themselves, right? Like we could just have a room and then so if you come into the room here and then once you like I don't know, like every room has like some kind of thing like a chest or like a fight or something for you to do in that room and once you do that thing, a door like doors just like then appear in places that they can. Yeah, I guess that could work, yeah. Huh. And like maybe we can make it like we it doesn't have to work exactly like that, right? But then so like okay, so you start here. You start in this room. This is like the entry hallway, the entrance to the dungeon, right? And let's say you've got like these two doors. Yeah, that's fine. And so you go through this one, picks a it. Hmm, am I having you draft? Yeah. So we're having the player pick a room. The player drafts one of three rooms. They go in here. We're gonna go back to the old spike pit well. Spike pit. You have to get to the other side, and there's a chest here. Once you open this chest, it'll spawn a door here, right? And then that leads into another room. It has a fight in it. Once you complete a fight, puts a door like here. Um, yeah, and so that way, and then that way we can kind of make it so like, yeah, yeah, okay. I think that could work. So we're back to drafting rooms now, which I'm okay with, because I like the idea of drafting rooms. So the question then becomes, I should do a tally. I should keep a tally of how many times I've said that. Like, so the question becomes, there, do we want to keep drafting acts or like drafting chunks? Or are we doing chunks? Or is it just like one big dungeon? I don't know. I like the idea of the dungeon changing as you get deeper into it. Um, and like different aesthetics becoming prevalent. Like I like the idea of the dungeon being like a mishmash of different things. Alternatively, so I guess what do we want the average game length to be? Because if it's just because we could just have it be like one area, like it could just be the Trapster's lair, and the goal is to get through the Trapster's lair. But that, I think that would then be a shorter run, which maybe isn't a bad thing. I guess this doesn't necessarily have to be short. Okay, I guess. Hmm. Maybe you do both. Maybe like you could have like on startup you could choose or like when you start a run you can choose to either just do like one area or like multiple areas if you want to for like a longer run. But like even like a smaller run, like we could design like this could be like this, right? Like this could be huge. And that way like I get to kind of yeah, okay. So yeah, maybe we're moving away from maybe we're not doing acts, right? Maybe you just like pick either it's either random or you pick like an area and then that decides what rooms are in the pool and it decides similar to Remnant. Decides the final boss, maybe decides some specific like loot that shows up. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that could work. That could yeah. Okay. I think we've solved the room conundrum. I think we figured it out. I like this. I think this works decently. So Okay, a room. So I think we are going with this. So this, and then additionally, room a specific thing to interact with, whether is chest, fight, or some third thing. Triggered and done. Door spawns to next issue of dead. Okay. So I do think this. Okay, so we figured that out. Uh, where so yeah, so I think, and I do like the idea of like the room itself is the same for the most part. Layout of dungeon changes. That being said, can switch up aim on macro scale microwise. So what I mean by that is like the spike pit is always going to be a spike pit, but like the chest on the other side, the chest over here, blah, 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 could have a different item in it each time. Maybe, maybe, maybe. Maybe there are some items that are specifically spawned in certain rooms, but okay. I think chests have random loot. Some items spawn consistent in the same room. So like maybe in like this, maybe in the mine, you get to the end of the minefield and you always get like the bomb boots, right? That are like up on a little pedestal. You could do that. That could work. Yeah. Okay. I like that. Cool. Um, so some decide boss. Okay. Cool. Sounds good. So what do we have? Time was 40 minutes. All right. Yeah. So I'll probably. I think that's a good. Figured out the room conundrum. Good solid work. So now gotta figure out what the fuck we do next time, I guess, because I feel like we've got our two big gameplay things figured out. With got we've got gear. So we've got gear for like the exploration bit of find gear to add cards to your deck. Um, we've got the room stuff figured out. We know how that's gonna work. Combat, I think, is gonna be pretty simple. I guess maybe next time we like finalize combat of just like I don't know. I think combat is fine because like you have health, you can gain block. Like I think it's gonna work very similarly to Slay Inspire, and I think that's fine because I think the combat itself is not what is the draw. It is all of the pieces around the combat that make it interesting, right? Like the drafting of cards and the room stuff. But combat itself, like, you got health, you can gain block. There'll probably be like different statuses and stuff we can play with. Enemy is the same, like health, block, etc., etc. I guess maybe exploration, because we haven't super touched on the exploration deck since earlier. So maybe we talk about that a little more and figure out how we want that portion to work. And talk about exploration, and then we can start maybe designing like a practice, or like a mock, like make a mock character, make a mock dungeon, and figure out how we want to go through it and start poking the holes in the systems. So, yeah, so exploration, mock up some stuff, and then once we're kind of happy with all of that, then we can start designing like specific characters, specific areas, bosses, enemies, etc., etc. Sounds like a good plan. So let's write that down somewhere. And also maybe then go back to theming, I guess. We gotta go back to that. Which I do actually I have an idea for how we're tying for the theme slash name like plot quotation marks of the game. Get back to you on that though. Yeah, so order of operations, touch up exploration, um, make mock up of a run, go through it, start designing specifics. Cool. All right, another good work today. Thank you for joining me on this one, Curtis. Thank you guys. As always, stay fresh, chat, and rock on. I gotta come up with a new ending. That sounds so fucking lame. Anyway, bye.